Welcome to Wild Mystery, where every story takes you beyond the edge of the wild. The sharp crack of gunfire cut through the still Montana morning, jolting Emma from her thoughts. The freezing wind whipped through the pine grove forest as a second shot echoed, sending a flock of birds scattering into the gray sky. Emma, just 6 years old and bundled in her red jacket, froze, the cold air biting at her cheeks. Her small body trembled, not from fear, but from something else, something more powerful. Ahead, 3 hunters, dressed in camouflage, trudged through the snow with rifles aimed toward the enclosure just beyond the ridge. "Kid, back away!" one of them shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "That thing's not safe." But Emma didn't move. She wasn't afraid. No, something inside her urged her forward, to the black mass behind the chain-link fence. To Rocky, the enormous wolf hybrid who was standing there, eyes glowing amber like molten gold in the early morning light. Without a second thought, Emma ran toward him, her legs barely making a sound in the snow as she dashed toward the massive creature 4 times her size. The hunters shouted, but Emma ignored them. She was determined to reach Rocky, to protect him, as he had always protected her. She stood between him and the men, her little frame small against the sheer size of the wolf hybrid. With a single confident hand raised, she faced the hunters and said, "You can't hurt him. He's mine." Her voice, though small, was filled with a strength that stunned everyone around her. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The hunters stood in shock, rifles lowered, unable to comprehend what was unfolding before them. Emma and Rocky locked eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. In that instant, it was clear. The bond they shared was not just one of human and animal. It was something far deeper. Emma wasn't just protecting Rocky. She was ensuring he was safe, and in return, Rocky was there to keep her safe, always. Her mother, Dr. Rachel Carter, watched from a distance, heart pounding in her chest. "Emma, no!" she cried. But her daughter didn't hear her. She was too focused on Rocky, too connected to him to back down. It was a bond unlike any Rachel had ever seen, one forged through silence and understanding. And as the hunters stepped back, Rachel realized, with a sudden clarity, that this was not just a dog. Rocky was no ordinary animal. He was Emma's protector, her companion, and together they were a force too strong to be broken. Emma had always been different. As a young girl with autism, the world around her often felt like a blur, too fast, too loud, too confusing. She didn't cry as much as other children, nor did she respond to the smiles or lullabies meant to comfort her. It was as if there was a wall between her and the world, one she couldn't break through. But there was something else that set her apart, something that left a mark, literally. A faint, yet unmistakable wolf paw-shaped birthmark etched onto her left wrist, a mark that no one could explain, not even her mother, Dr. Rachel Carter. Doctors called it a congenital anomaly, but to Rachel, it felt like a mystery, something deeper, waiting to be understood. Life was tough for Emma. She rarely spoke and preferred to stay in her own world, avoiding touch and new experiences. Rachel tried everything to help her daughter connect, from therapy dogs to music sessions, but nothing seemed to work. Emma's connection to the world remained distant until one fateful day when their lives changed forever. Rachel, desperate to find something that would reach her daughter, came across a sanctuary run by Frank Weston. Frank had a husky rescue, but there was one pup left, a black wolf hybrid named Rocky. When they arrived at the sanctuary, Emma's gaze locked onto the pup in a way Rachel had never seen. It was as if a silent understanding passed between them. Emma walked forward, unprompted, placing her hand gently against the fence. Rocky stood up, walked over, and pressed his nose against the very spot where Emma's hand met the wire. In that moment, Rachel witnessed something incredible. the first time Emma had ever initiated contact with another living being. It wasn't just a moment of curiosity. It was the beginning of something much bigger, something profound. Frank, noticing Emma's wolf-shaped birthmark, gave a knowing smile. "The wolf has found her," he said softly, a hint of recognition in his voice. Rocky came home that day, and with him, Emma began to change. Within days, Emma started whispering to him, and by the end of the week, she was speaking full sentences, but only to Rocky. She laughed, played, and drew pictures of a black wolf and a little girl with stars above their heads. It was clear. Emma had found her voice, and Rocky was the key. The bond they shared was deep and unspoken, but it was powerful enough to bridge the gap between Emma and the world she had struggled to connect with. Rocky wasn't just a dog. He was her protector, her companion, and in many ways, her savior. Rocky's growth was nothing short of extraordinary. What began as a tiny pup, barely fitting in Emma's small arms, quickly transformed into a massive, powerful creature. By just 4 months old, he had already gained 60 pounds, and by 6 months he was taller than Emma, his body sleek and strong. But it wasn't just his size that was unsettling, it was his intelligence. Rocky's sharp eyes seemed to analyze everything around him, his reactions too fast, too calculated, almost too human. Emma's mother, Rachel, watched with growing concern as Rocky's behavior became more pronounced. While most dogs were content with simple games or a routine, Rocky's actions were more deliberate. He responded to Emma with an awareness that couldn't be explained by the typical dog training methods Rachel had known. His protective instincts kicked in whenever Emma was around, often standing guard without being told. One night, when a neighbor's dog wandered too close to their yard, Rocky didn't bark or growl. He simply froze, muscles taut and eyes fixed on the intruder. Only when Emma stepped outside and placed her hand gently on his flank did he relax, as if he was waiting for her approval. Rachel couldn't help but feel uneasy. It was clear Rocky wasn't just a dog, he was something else. And he wasn't just protective. He had a bond with Emma that was unlike anything Rachel had ever seen. He wasn't like other pets, the kind you could leave in the yard without worry. Rocky seemed to understand Emma in ways no one else did, his every action measured with care. He never let her out of his sight and would follow her with unwavering loyalty. As the weeks passed, Rachel began to hear the whispers from the community. People noticed the odd connection between Emma and Rocky, the strange bond that seemed to go beyond what any human or animal relationship should be. Some said Rocky was too dangerous, too wild. Others questioned how a creature like him could live so closely with a child, especially one as delicate as Emma. But Rachel saw what they didn't. Rocky wasn't just a protector, he was Emma's lifeline. She had never seen Emma so animated, so full of life. Despite her growing unease, Rachel couldn't deny the truth. Rocky was special. And no matter how strange or unsettling his rapid growth or protective nature became, he was Emma's guardian, and she needed him. The community's gossip didn't matter. What mattered was the extraordinary bond that was forming between her daughter and the wolf hybrid who had become her most trusted companion. Rachel's heart raced as the truth came crashing down on her. Rocky's rapid growth and strange behavior had already unsettled her, but the results from Dr. Elena Vasquez, the wildlife geneticist, were more than she had bargained for. As she sat across from Dr. Vasquez in the sterile clinic, the weight of the discovery began to sink in. Rocky wasn't just a dog. He was 87% Northwestern wolf, a high-content wolf hybrid. The revelation hit Rachel like a punch to the gut. The creature she had taken in to protect her daughter was something far more dangerous and complex than she could have ever imagined. Dr. Vasquez's voice echoed in Rachel's mind as she explained the genetic results. Rocky's DNA is far beyond that of a normal dog. He's more wolf than husky, and that percentage places him in a category with strict legal regulations. Animals with over 50% wolf content need to be carefully controlled. Rachel's mind spun as she took in the implications of the news. Montana laws were clear. Owning a high-content wolf hybrid like Rocky was legal, but it came with a myriad of rules: permanent identification, specific containment measures, and, most importantly, the potential danger he could pose to the community. The thought of losing Rocky was unbearable. He had become Emma's closest companion, her protector, and the one source of joy in her otherwise quiet world. But Rachel knew she couldn't ignore the reality of the situation. If she continued to keep Rocky, there was no telling what might happen, both legally and personally. As much as she wanted to keep him by Emma's side, Rachel understood that doing so could put them both at risk. After days of sleepless nights and countless debates, Rachel made the gut-wrenching decision to relocate Rocky to Wild Haven, a sanctuary that specialized in high-content wolf hybrids. The thought of Emma losing her only friend broke Rachel's heart. She knew the separation would be devastating for both of them, but it seemed like the only responsible choice. The community had already begun whispering about the danger Rocky posed, and the weight of their judgments was too much to ignore. As Rachel prepared to say goodbye to Rocky, she saw Emma's bright blue eyes filled with tears. It was the first time Emma had fully expressed her fear. She clung to Rocky, whispering promises to never let him go. But Rachel knew this was the hardest decision she would ever make, and it was the only way to ensure that Emma and Rocky would both have a future, one where they could thrive, but apart. The bond between them was undeniable, but the world wasn't ready for it. The gates of Wild Haven closed behind Rocky with a soft clang, and Emma's world fell silent. Her small frame collapsed into her mother's arms as the reality of the separation hit her like a wave. For the first time in months, Emma's voice trembled, and her tears soaked into Rachel's shirt. "I promised him we'd never be apart." The words were barely a whisper, but they shattered Rachel's heart. As she looked down at Emma, her little girl, once so connected to the world through her bond with Rocky, seemed to retreat into a shell, her light dimming. This wasn't just a separation. It was the breaking of a fragile connection that had held Emma together. Meanwhile, in the sanctuary, Rocky was no better. His massive frame, once full of energy, now slouched in the corner of his enclosure, eyes dull with sadness. He refused to eat, pacing back and forth with a rhythmic urgency. He seemed to be waiting for something or someone. The staff at Wild Haven were astonished by the depth of the bond between the two. They had seen wolves with strong attachments before, but never like this. Rocky's grief was palpable, his movements heavy with sorrow. His eyes, usually so sharp and alert, were now clouded with confusion and longing. He would not settle, not eat, not rest. He wasn't just missing Emma. He was mourning her loss. As days turned into weeks, the sanctuary staff tried everything to engage him, but nothing worked. Rocky's responses grew slower. His spirit seemed to fade with each passing day. The staff had never encountered such a profound emotional reaction from an animal, and they were left stunned by the powerful grief Rocky displayed. It wasn't just the absence of a companion. It was the loss of a part of himself, a piece of his soul. The bond he had shared with Emma had transcended that of a typical pet-owner relationship. He had been her protector, her voice, her everything. Now that connection was severed, and both Emma and Rocky were paying the price. Rachel, too, watched helplessly as Emma withdrew further into herself. The once bright girl who had laughed, drawn pictures, and played with Rocky was now silent, her drawings becoming erratic, chaotic scribbles. She barely spoke, barely moved. The joy that had been sparked by her bond with Rocky was gone, and in its place, there was only a hollow emptiness. It was as if the heart of their family had been ripped out. Neither Emma nor Rocky knew how to cope with the pain of being apart. The grief was too much to bear. In their separation, they had both lost a part of themselves, connected not by words, but by something deeper, something unspoken. And for Rachel, the hardest part was knowing that no matter what she did, she couldn't heal the pain they both felt. One quiet evening, as the wind howled outside, Frank Weston, the owner of Wild Haven, sat down with Rachel, his expression serious. "I need to tell you something," he began, his voice heavy with the weight of years of silence. "Your daughter, Emma, she's a bridge child." Rachel's heart skipped a beat. The term was unfamiliar, yet Frank's eyes bore a depth of understanding she couldn't ignore. "Bridge children," Frank continued, "are born with wolf-like birthmarks. They're destined to bond with a special breed of wolves, ones like Rocky." The words hung in the air, making the room feel suddenly too small. Rachel, already reeling from the realization of how profound Emma's connection to Rocky had been, now found herself confronted with something far greater than she could have imagined. "Bridge wolves," Frank explained, "are rare, ancient creatures. They carry a bloodline meant to protect and connect with those marked by the wolf paw." He paused, allowing the weight of the revelation to sink in. Emma and Rocky, their bond, it isn't just emotional, it's genetic, something passed down over generations. This ancient connection, one that had been shrouded in mystery for centuries, now explained everything Rachel had witnessed. It wasn't just a bond between a girl and her pet. It was a deep, almost mystical relationship that transcended the normal understanding of human-animal connections. Emma, with her wolf-paw birthmark, had been destined to find Rocky, a wolf whose lineage carried the same sacred ties. Their connection wasn't random. It was written in their blood, something far older than their small town and more powerful than either of them could have known. The pieces of their story suddenly fit together in a way Rachel hadn't expected. Emma's ability to communicate with Rocky, the ease with which she had found him, and the immediate, profound connection they shared. It was all part of a larger, ancient pattern. Emma wasn't just a child with autism. She was one of the few chosen to walk alongside a bridge wolf, a creature whose purpose had been to guard and guide her. And Rocky, though a creature of great power and mystery, had found his purpose in Emma, just as she had found hers in him. Rachel's mind raced with this new knowledge, the implications of it settling like a heavy stone in her chest. She had always known Emma was special, but now she understood that the connection between them and Rocky wasn't just a miracle. It was destiny. A bond like theirs, so ancient and powerful, couldn't be broken easily. It was a bridge between worlds, a rare and sacred link that would change the course of their lives forever. The phone call came in the middle of the night. Rachel sat frozen as the doctor's voice on the other end delivered news that seemed impossible to comprehend. Both Emma and Rocky were diagnosed with life-threatening blood conditions. It wasn't just one diagnosis. Both had been found to have aggressive, rare blood diseases, seemingly tied to their unique, unbreakable bond. As if the connection between them was so strong, it had affected them both on a genetic level. Rachel's heart sank, the weight of it all pressing down on her chest. How could this be happening to her daughter and to Rocky, the creature who had become her daughter's protector? It wasn't long before Rachel learned the chilling truth. Their blood disorders were tied to their extraordinary connection. The way Rocky had grown, so much faster than any ordinary dog, and the way Emma had transformed in his presence, all of it had led to something more than just a special relationship. They were both sick in ways no one could explain. Desperation sank into Rachel's bones, but just when it seemed there were no answers, a glimmer of hope appeared in the form of an experimental treatment, a stem cell transplant between Emma and Rocky. The idea seemed insane, but there was a chance it could work. The proposed treatment would take advantage of their unique genetic resonance, the very bond that had seemed to both help and hurt them. The plan was to use stem cells from one body and transplant them into the other, allowing their immune systems to accept each other's cells. It was a groundbreaking idea that no one had ever attempted before, but with both Emma and Rocky's lives hanging in the balance, they had nothing to lose. Rachel was faced with an agonizing decision. The treatment was risky. No one knew for sure if it would work. But seeing Emma struggle, her health slowly declining, and knowing Rocky's strength was fading too, Rachel realized she couldn't wait any longer. This was their last chance. As the treatment was scheduled, Rachel stayed close by Emma's side. The hospital rooms, the sterile smells, and the uncertainty of it all made her feel helpless. But there was one thing she knew for certain. Emma and Rocky's bond wasn't just emotional, it was life-altering and powerful. If this stem cell transplant could somehow harness that energy, maybe, just maybe, it would give both of them a chance at life, a chance to keep fighting, together. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous. After undergoing the experimental stem cell transplant, Emma and Rocky were slowly but steadily recovering. The once weak, fragile creatures now showed signs of life that they had both almost lost. For Emma, the darkness that had clouded her world for so long began to lift. Her energy, once consumed by the pain of her condition, was now being channeled into something else: hope. And Rocky, the loyal wolf hybrid who had once been nothing more than a protector, was now thriving with a newfound vitality that matched Emma's own. Their bond, already extraordinary, only deepened after the transplant, as if their very souls were intertwined, healing together. But the healing process wasn't just physical. Emma began to blossom in ways her mother, Rachel, had never thought possible. No longer confined by the limitations of her illness, Emma's spirit grew stronger with each passing day. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. And it wasn't long before she discovered a new sense of purpose. At the sanctuary, where she had once only been a quiet observer, Emma began helping guide young visitors through the grounds, showing them the same sense of peace and connection she had found with Rocky. She led them with confidence, her previously silent world now filled with a newfound sense of power. Rocky, as if sensing her newfound strength, followed closely at her side, just as he always had, his amber eyes watching her with a mix of affection and pride. It was in those moments, as Emma led children through the sanctuary, that Rachel realized her daughter was no longer the child who struggled to connect with the world. Emma had become a guide, a mentor, and a beacon of hope. And so, the Bridge program was born. It was Emma's vision, a program to help children with autism and emotional trauma, just as she had struggled with, find healing in a place of peace, a place where they could bond with the animals in ways that transcended words. Emma had become the bridge, not just between Rocky and herself, but between those who needed help and the healing power of the sanctuary. The program became a lifeline for countless children and their families, all thanks to the remarkable bond between a little girl and a wolf hybrid. The future was no longer uncertain. Together, Emma and Rocky had not only healed, but had transformed the lives of others, teaching them that sometimes the most powerful bonds are the ones that go beyond the physical, and that true healing begins when we connect, heart to heart. It was a quiet evening at the sanctuary when the birth of Ember, the smallest of Rocky's pups, changed everything. Emma, now a confident young guide at the sanctuary, had always been drawn to the animals, especially Rocky, the wolf hybrid who had been her protector and closest friend. But there was something different about Ember. The tiny pup, with her soft fur and wide, curious eyes, seemed to understand Emma in a way that no one could explain. As Ember grew, she began to mirror the exact same gestures Rocky had made for Emma during their most difficult times. It started with a simple tilt of her head, a small movement that Emma instantly recognized. When Emma knelt down to visit her, Ember would approach, just like Rocky had done all those months ago, pressing her small nose into Emma's palm with the same unspoken connection. It was as if the spirit of Rocky lived on in the little wolf, continuing the bond that had shaped Emma's life in ways she could never fully describe. The sanctuary staff watched in awe as Ember's bond with Emma deepened. The puppy seemed to instinctively know what Emma needed, just as her father Rocky had done before. It wasn't long before Ember became Emma's constant companion. The pup would follow her every step, offering her the same comfort and protection that Rocky had always provided. It was as though Rocky's spirit had passed on to his daughter, making Ember not just a symbol of continuity, but also a living testament to the bond between Emma and the wolves. To Emma, Ember became something more than just a wolf pup. She was a reminder of everything she had been through, the darkness she had endured, and the strength she had gained from her bond with Rocky. But she was also a symbol of the future, a sign that the connection between Emma and the wolves would never end. As Ember grew, she carried with her the legacy of her father, and together they proved that some bonds transcend even time and space. Ember's presence filled Emma with a deep sense of peace. She knew that, no matter what the future held, she would never be alone. With Rocky's spirit living on in Ember, Emma's bond with the wolves was unbreakable. Together, they were a living testament to the strength of love, loyalty, and connection, no matter how wild the world may seem. Emma stood on the edge of the sanctuary, the golden light of sunset stretching across the pines. As she gazed into the horizon, her heart swelled with a mix of gratitude and awe. The journey she had shared with Rocky, and now with Ember, had shaped her in ways words could never fully capture. From the moment Rocky had entered her life, she knew she was different, but it was in that difference that she found her true strength. Reflecting on everything they had been through, the trials, the healing, the unspoken connection, Emma understood now more than ever that their bond wasn't just rare, it was destined. She was marked from birth with a symbol of the wild, a wolf's paw print that had connected her to Rocky from the start. In that mark, she found purpose. She was never truly alone. The memories of those difficult moments, the pain, the fear, the uncertainty, faded away as she thought of how far they had come. Rocky's protective nature, his unwavering loyalty, and his unspoken communication had guided her through the hardest times. They had become each other's strength, helping her find her voice when words failed her, and teaching her the language of the wild. But now, with Ember by her side, Emma felt a sense of closure. Ember wasn't just a reminder of Rocky's legacy. She was the embodiment of their shared destiny. The little wolf pup, growing stronger each day, had taken on the mantle that Rocky had carried before her. Together, they represented everything Emma had learned from her bond with Rocky, the beauty of acceptance, the power of love, and the profound connection between humans and the wild. Emma knew that their journey was not just hers to walk. It was a legacy they were building together, a bridge between the human world and the wild one. Shadow, still by her side in spirit, had left an indelible mark on her soul. His bond with her had not just been one of protection and companionship. It was a reminder that there was more to this world than the confines of human understanding. With Rocky's spirit living on in Ember, Emma understood that their connection would never end. The journey was far from over. It was only just beginning. With Rocky and Ember walking beside her, Emma was ready to continue her path, not as someone different, but as someone destined to bridge two worlds, one wild, one human, and to leave a legacy that would echo through generations. The mark she carried was more than a symbol. It was a promise of the endless bond between humans and the wild. Wow, this story truly moved me. It's not every day that you come across a tale so beautifully intertwined with emotion, destiny, and a deep connection to nature. The bond between Emma and Rocky, and later with Ember, is nothing short of extraordinary. It's like they're all part of a larger cosmic plan, Emma marked from birth by the wolf's paw, connecting her to Rocky in a way that feels spiritual and destined. I was particularly struck by how Emma's journey, initially filled with confusion and isolation, transforms into one of empowerment and purpose. She's not just a girl with a unique birthmark. She's a bridge between the human world and the wild, a living testament to the connection we share with the creatures of this earth. I could feel her growth as a person, from struggling with her differences to embracing them fully, finding her strength in what made her unique. And then, the way Rocky becomes her protector, guiding her not with words, but with his deep, intuitive understanding of her needs. It's just beautiful. There's something almost sacred about their connection. When Ember comes into the picture, it's as if Rocky's legacy lives on through her, a reminder that these bonds, these connections, transcend time and physical form. It's as if nature itself is showing Emma that this journey is bigger than herself, and that the love between them will live on. This story made me reflect on the connections I have with the world around me, and how sometimes the most profound relationships are those we can't fully explain. It's a reminder that there's more to life than meets the eye, and that love, in its purest form, is truly limitless. I'm left feeling inspired and deeply moved by Emma's journey and the legacy she carries forward.